Start all over.
Now it's on.
All right, we had a little technical difficulty there. Sorry, with the show there, things happen, especially when we have a powerful brother like this on. We're going to get this started again. We have Minister Lavelle of the Nation of Islam on here with the Hour of Power. Again, go to Hour of Power, Sharif Hamid on YouTube. Subscribe and share the channel so we can continue to lift the mind, body, and soul of our people. We have Minister Lavelle, who is the student minister of the Nation of Islam for Harrisburg, York, and Lancaster. Student minister for our good dear brother, Minister Farrakhan. Sorry, brother, but can you once again introduce yourself and tell us who you are and tell us how you came into the nation and being the local minister there in Harrisburg?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother Sharif. And just like to thank you for giving us an opportunity to come on your show today, brother. Before I introduce myself, commend you for what you're doing, showing a lot of heart and a lot of courage. Trying to unite our people and trying to feed our people right guidance is always a tough task. And our people at this point in time in history, we really need guidance. We need to mobilize. We need to atone. We need to reconcile, brother. And we need somebody that's going to be a leader that's going to go out there and try to do the best they possibly can as an individual and also galvanize our people. And I think that you're doing a wonderful job in York, getting the Latinos together and marching through the inner city, the rough areas, as well as the blacks. We were blessed to come down a few weeks ago and walk the streets with you and talk to the people. And it's always an awesome thing to do that because you really get to see the condition of the people. And it seems like we're really suffering here, not only in all the other cities, but York as well. Suffering from the senseless killing and the shooting. And the people we're talking about, they were afraid. They just didn't see any hope. Nobody's coming to answer their prayers. Nobody's coming to help. And here you come, galvanizing, uniting with different people in the community, as well as ourselves, to take back the streets. And that's what we need to do. That's what we definitely need to do. We support you, brother, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit deeper as the show goes on. But my name is Lavelle Muhammad, student representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for Central Pennsylvania. And I've known Brother Sharif for a long time, and he's a true brother, a good brother, and I'm here to show your support and show the city of York support that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan does love them, all the people in the city, and we here as a beacon of light in the darkness.
Yes. And do you want to tell the people about how you actually became the acting minister there
Sure.
in Harrisburg and how we actually connected?
Well, that's a long time ago.
Right.
That's a long time ago. But it's funny how God works. I didn't have no intentions to ever becoming a minister, student minister. I just was a brother similar to the brothers in the streets, just walking around aimlessly, hopelessly. Just didn't have no ambition, no drive. Didn't know what I wanted to do in the future. And I heard about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I heard about a 1 million man march that was to happen October 16th, 1995. I wasn't familiar at that time with the nation or Islam or myself. I just knew that I was a brother that was just looking for some type of change. So when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan called the march, and he called for 1 million men to come to Washington, D.C., actually 2 million came, and 85% of those who actually attended the 1 million man march were actually Christians. So it's interesting how a Muslim man can call a march for black men who the whole United States of America, nobody can handle these inner city men. Nobody can handle these inner city youth, but a man was able to call 1 million to come to Washington, D.C., and to reconcile our differences, to atone for our wrongdoing, to take a look at ourselves, go back and be better husbands, be better examples of men, and to change our communities. I mean, that man was able to do that. Not only did he hit the Muslims, but he hit the Christians, and he hit all of us. And 1 million came, but actually 1 million was called rather, but 2 million actually came, which is a miracle. You know how it is, brother. We can't get 20 blacks to come to our house for a party without there being some type of violence. And the minister was able to, with the permission of Almighty God, have a successful million-man march to October 16th, 1995. And that's what I saw, brother, and that's what moved me.
Is that around the time that you came into the nation?
Well, I came in as a result of that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't actually hear what the minister was saying at the march because I did not attend. I watched it on the TV, but the power and the energy and the light that I saw inside of that man, it moved me so much. I said, you know what? I'm tired of living other than myself. I'm tired of making bad decisions. I see something special about that brother, and I wanted to follow him, and I wanted to get to know him more as a result of him just being on that screen.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I submitted, and that was nearly 22 years ago. Right. And I've been a follower of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and a helper of our community. I've learned a lot about myself, and it's been 22 years.
Right. And as far as the nation here in York, PA, I'll kind of fill in on this part.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be remiss not to mention my Uncle Thomas.
Oh, absolutely.
And I remember, talking with him, years ago.
Yeah.
And that's how we met, through Brother Thomas. Can
Absolutely.
you tell us about,
Absolutely.
may he rest in peace, can
Yeah.
you tell us about your interaction with my uncle and how
brother.
he got y'all going?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
brother. We're taught that elders are for counsel, youth are for war.
Mm-hmm.
And in talking with Brother Thomas, he was an older brother, but he had a lot of wisdom. He had a lot of patience, and he was an awesome brother, and he was our representative for York. And we had a strong relationship way back then before he transitioned. Mm-hmm. And that's how we met you. That's how we came to York, and we hit the street a few times. I believe Brother Thomas used to be faithful in selling the Final Call newspaper by himself in the whole city. And I commend him for that. That shows a lot of courage, especially because York had some riots, I believe, during the 60s. So it's not a place that would be receptive of Islam or black culture. However, he was able to be steadfast and stand up and let people know that he was with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And through him, brother, we have a relationship. Praise be to Allah.
Yes. I just, like you said, it's strange how God puts people together, but it's not by accident.
Absolutely.
And he said, some brothers in Harrisburg, because at that time I was trying to find myself.
Absolutely.
And even though y'all weren't established here, you weren't too far away, and you told me about you brothers up there. And,
yes, sir.
I met you, and we've been
rolling
brothers
ever since. That's right.
Y'all came down here when no one else didn't want to walk the streets and
Yes,
reach
sir.
the people.
Yes,
I
sir.
could always, give you guys a ring, and y'all came down several times.
Yes, sir.
To
Yes,
spread
sir.
the word and let people know
Yeah.
about the paper and everything.
Well, brother, we will continue as followers of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. It's mandatory for us to go talk to our people in the street, to go walk the streets, the worst of the inner city. And see, it takes a special character to do that. I love my brothers, my Christian brothers and sisters, but I wish they would take the strength of Jesus and go out in the streets and let people know how strong Jesus was and is, and being able to overthrow those who are destroying our streets. Because the crack dealers and the cocaine dealers and those who are shooting and killing, they look like their God is more powerful than the God that we say that we serve. And we, because of our lack of belief and our lack of faith, faith without works is dead. So you just can't say you believe in God, but yet you see your communities going to hell. You got to get up and go trust in your God, trust in your Lord, regardless if you're a Christian or you're a Muslim, whatever you calling yourself, trust in your God. Go out and talk to your people, and you'll find commonality in between us. You'll see that they're not just bad people. You'll see that they're suffering. Our people are righteous by nature, but we are, because of condition, the condition of being oppressed, condition of the horrible, horrific education that we receive, always not having any money, and the drug addiction and the guns and the violence that kills our mindset. And our people are victims behind that because of condition, but that's just not our nature. We're good brothers by nature. I could take any one of those who many consider to be thugs or gangsters, put them under the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, which has been proven, and he will change his life. And see, if the rest of the world can see that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Minister Farrakhan, has able to take the worst of our brothers and sisters and change them and resurrect their mindset so now they become productive citizens, brother, we can learn from that. We can learn from that.
Yes, I want to take what you said a couple minutes ago about reaching out to the people and not so much hiding. I do think people are catching on a little bit. Just before I came here, I was with a Christian brother, and they were doing some foot soldiering. And before I go any further, anyone out there listening, the call-in number 717-846-5067. 717-846-5067. But I was with a brother, and they were out in the streets, but no one can do it like y'all do it.
Yes,
you know
sir.
what I mean? No one can do it like y'all do it.
Yes, sir.
And they were out there, but more need to do it because it's so much work, that needs to be done. And we were talking the other day about a speech Minister Farrakhan gave a while back called Youth in Peril.
Oh, come on
and we
now.
were talking about it's a systematic plan to create an atmosphere for us to eliminate each other. Do you want to expound on that and explain that?
One of the reasons why the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan called, he was inspired. He was having a lecture, and he just was inspired and said, hey, let's call 1 million men to Washington, D.C. He was shocked that he actually said 1 million. He wanted to take it back, like, man, I can't get 1 million men to come to Washington. But through the inspiration and the guidance of God, he was able to do it. But he was doing it to prevent us from killing each other, because he knew that our open enemies have done some things to get us to kill one another way back in the 80s when they gave us crack. They put cracks in the ghettos, the guns in the ghetto. He knew that was a plan by the enemy to have us self-destruct. You remember KRS-One, self-destruction? Right. You remember the rappers back then who were starting to talk consciousness, because we needed to get in our minds. We needed to get in our mindset that we have love for one another and stop having hate for one another. But he knew the enemy was perpetuating that. He was pushing that. So he had the Mean Man March to get us to reconcile, to get us to atone. And 20 years after that, on October 10th, 2015, we went back to Washington, which was called Justice or Else. Right. That's when we told the government and those who are the enemy of the rise of the black and the Latino, we told them that either you stop killing us or God was going to intervene. And that shook some people up a little bit, because we do believe that we are the chosen people of God. And how you treat us, God will treat you. And you can see that through some of the hurricanes and tornadoes. When you see them come hit America, they always take the path of slavery. So they start down in Miami, and then they come up the west, the south coast, and they come up the east, just the same way we did slavery. Just letting us know that you are the chosen people of God, and your oppressors now, their time is up. So that's why I like your show. It says the hour of power, where their time is up. They had 6,000 years to rule. Their time of rulership is up. That's why you hear the consciousness in the rap. You hear the consciousness of the talk of our people, and that I really say that really contribute a lot of that towards the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan during the early 80s and 90s when he used to meet with the rappers. He first met with the Bloods and the Crips in Los Angeles, and he was able to have the Bloods and Crips embrace one another and stop killing one another. He was successful in that. Then we went into the projects in the inner cities of Chicago and Washington, D.C. So the Nation of Islam, the FOI, went in there and we started to secure the projects, and they stopped hustling, they stopped shooting, they stopped killing. The women were walking around their community feeling like they were protected. This is what the FOI did. Well, the enemy came in and stopped our contracts. The enemy always has a way to come in and to push us out and to put negative light in the media about the Nation of Islam so our people will stay away from us, because there's really a solution in this.
Mm-hmm. So under the guidance of Minister Farrakhan, are you saying that you believe it's a systematic plan for all the destruction and the violence and the bloodshed that we see?
Absolutely.
This isn't just us just doing this on our own.
Absolutely.
The atmosphere has been set for this to happen, and they want us gone.
Absolutely. Well, everybody has an enemy. You always have an enemy by nature. You have a cat. The dog is an enemy to a cat. You have a rat. A cat is an enemy to a rat. You have a snake. A snake is an enemy to all of us. Mm-hmm. But in nature, God always has an enemy. He always has a prey. He always has a predator. Well, who is our open enemy? Who's the enemy of the black man? Now, we have to go back to slavery when we came over here in 1555. See, because 400 years of slavery is significant, because what they did to us, we are the residue of that right now. So you think about them saying to us, well, you're not permitted to read, you're not permitted to write. For 400 years, not 10 years, not 20, not 100, not 200, 400 years of not permitting us to read and write. So what that means is that's a culture of people. Now all of a sudden, now you get this product of these people who have no knowledge of themselves, no knowledge of their culture. No, they can't read, they can't write. They're 400 years in the rear. Well, now you're easily to be controlled. So then once we began to get education, then we began to rise. But they still kept us in our place, because afterwards you had Martin Luther King come during the Civil Rights Movement era, and they still oppressed us openly, still kept us conditioned to follow their way. You have an education system, a public education system, that's a Eurocentric educational system. That means it's made for white people, by white people, so they can be successful in it. We are not successful in their program. We need a knowledge of ourselves. We need to know who we are. We need to know our own history and how we relate to God and how we relate to the devil. So these systematic things, education, the pipeline to the prison system, the revolving door around that. I read from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan the other day. He said over 100,000 blacks and Latinos have died within the last 9 years in the inner city. Now you think about this. Over 100,000 blacks and Latinos have died in our inner cities. 100,000 in those 9 years. Well, the Vietnam War was 9 years, and 59,000 people died in totality. Mm-hmm. So that means we are killing more than what they killed in the Vietnam War. That means something must be wrong. Mm-hmm. And the scripture says, don't blame the pot, blame the potter. See, we want to look at the pot. We want to look at us and our lack of response. You want to look at the youth, and you want to say, well, what's going on with the youth? Why are they rebelling against the system? How comes they don't want the education? How comes they're tearing up the streets? Well, a wise man said, I don't want to say that yet. But the scripture says, how can you love God whom you have never seen and hate your brother whom you see every day?
Right.
How you going to hate your brother whom you see every day, but you claim to love God? You ain't never seen him. So what I'm saying is this enemy has gotten us so we killing each other. We don't see God in one another. And that's why it's easy for us to kill each other. We don't see no value in ourselves. And since I can't see no value in me, I can't see no value in you. So it's easy for me to pull the trigger for you. Towards you. I've been neglected. I've been looked at. I have seen you get beat down through 400 years of slavery. I've seen you be oppressed. So you're nothing. I'm nothing. That's the system. You're not. As long as we're living underneath white America, we'll always be under. We'll never be equal. Mm-hmm. And our children know that.
What would you say to the naysayers that would say, Pookie shot Jamal and no white man was around? And this has happened, over and over again. We're doing it to each other. But I think you already answered that when you said, don't blame the pot.
Don't blame the potter, the one who shaped, galvanized, cultivated. Mm-hmm. Blame the one who shaped it, not the pot.
Right.
Because you have all these systems who have made us, who have forced us to turn on ourselves. Mm-hmm. And we trying to deal with, like, when you have a cold, you may have your nose running, you may cough a lot, your stomach may hurt, you may get a fever. Those are symptoms to the problem. Mm-hmm. But the real problem is inside. So you see us shooting and killing, you see us running from school, you see us disrespecting the teachers, you see us being horrible fathers, just other than ourselves. That's symptoms. That's not the root of the problem. The root of the problem is our lack of understanding, our lack of self-knowledge, knowledge of who we are and how our relationship with God and our relationship with the devil. And I wanted to say this is important because as a principal, a lot of times they look at our inner city boys and girls and they say, well, man, them black children, Latino children are off the hook. Harrisburg city schools are horrible. York city schools are horrible. Lancaster city schools are horrible. Well, you're saying all the city schools throughout America are just horrific. Well, why? See, our children are not responding to that Eurocentric education that we were forced to respond to. And see, rebellious to tyranny is obedience to God. That's what I didn't want to say, but I said it. Mm-hmm. Rebellious to tyranny is obedience to God. And so we're looking at our children rebelling against a society that has enslaved us and oppressed us. And we're looking at that like, man, there's something wrong with the children. No, there's something wrong with us and the society and the system. The system is broke, but we forcing our children to submit to a system that's going to make them be other than themselves. They ain't submitting to that no more. Mm-hmm. They want better. They want to know about themselves. They want to know about their future. They want black first. They want Latino first. They want to learn about Benjamin Franklin and George Washington and how America was discovered. You know what I'm saying? They don't want to hear that. If you're going to give them, they're going to shut you down because there's a change of a different world. Our youth, who are products of the Million Man March 20 years later, and in the scriptures that we know, Joshua had his hand, he was able to deal with the youth and talk the language of the youth in the scriptures. The only man I know, 85 years old, who can talk to the language of the youth is the Honorable Minister Farrakhan. I have been with him in New York City when he met with the rappers in the early 90s. I've been in the room when he talked to them about their language and talked to them about how they lead in the whole world. Because, see, the enemy didn't expect that rappers would come with a knowledge that would change the mindset of children, which you see happening right now. They didn't expect that to happen, and it's happening. The consciousness in the rap. You know, now you see revolutionists. Now you see them exposing the enemy. Boy, that all came from the 80s and the 90s when Minister Farrakhan was in California with Snoop and the rest of them. When I was with him, he was with Russell Simmons. I had to do security on Russell Simmons myself on behalf of the minister. Dougie Fresh, Keith Murray, KRS-One. See, these rappers, he talked to them and talked to them about changing their lyrics so you can wake up a people, because nobody knows how to deal with our youth. They tearing up York City schools, and we think that something's wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with them. They were made by God for this time period, to destroy this time period, to destroy what we were given, because what we were given can't help us no more.
Minister Lavelle, very, very deep. No. I want you to continue on, but I wanted to add in something that's been, weighing heavy on me, because hearing your, as we know, which I can't thank you and the brothers, you're not here alone. You have some wonderful brothers with you. And I just wanted to thank y'all for helping me out with the Black Love Movement.
Yes,
and
sir.
with the Black Love Movement, what we want to push is to let them know their high value. That's one of my goals. Absolutely. If it's the last thing I do, one of to let them know their high value.
Absolutely.
And Minister Ishmael, who is the national representative of Minister Farrakhan, right, assistant, he's been pushing a message about the children of Israel, and how this was a systematic plan by Pharaoh.
Absolutely.
And how this current government is still trying to eliminate black boys. And he
Absolutely.
said, come, let us deal with them wisely. Can
Yes,
you
sir.
explain
Oh,
that
brother.
a little more?
Beautiful.
Come deal with them wisely, lest they multiply.
Yes.
Is that something just back in the day, or is that still going on now?
we in the good question, brother. Great. And I want to be very clear with this, because the Bible is not a dead Bible. The Bible is a living Bible. So we don't read the Bible as though it happened. We read the Bible as though it's happening. So you had Pharaoh, who was like the government, and you had Moses, who went to Pharaoh and said, hey, let the children of Israel go, because they were enslaved, but they didn't even realize that they were slaves. They were just part of a system that was non-productive, that they were just a slave. Well, Pharaoh said, well, let the children of Israel go, when he pleaded. Well, we believe that scripture is relevant today.
It's playing out.
Yeah, because you have Genesis chapter 15, verse 13. God is talking to Abraham, and he says, know for surety that your seed will be a stranger in the land for 400 years, and they will serve those people and be afflicted. And we believe that's our sojourn here in America as slaves for 400 years. It best fits us as being the children of Israel, the chosen people of God. And imagine that. Imagine being a white person, and all your life you've been always taught that the Jews are the chosen people, and that those inner city blacks and Latinos, they're nothing. And then all of a sudden the revelation comes out, well, hold on, your mistreatment of them, they're my people you've been mistreating. And since you've been mistreating my people and guiding them and steering them wrong, I'm going to judge you. And God is judging through the floods, through the thunderstorms, through the hurricanes, through snowstorms. See, because it's not hitting us right now, we forget just a couple months ago, he tore up a whole city. And see, those things were not happening when I was growing up in Brooklyn and Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Those weren't happening. Now they're happening more so because their time of rulership is up. So now you have a fall of one world and you have a rise of another world. There has to be a little clash that's going on there. But now it's time for those who took on the characteristics of their oppressor to rise. And you rise, which is called resurrection, through your mindset, your mentality, changing your thought process. Once you change your thought, then you can change your behavior. So we don't look at our young brothers walking around the street shooting and killing. Yeah, we don't have no business shooting and killing. But see, if they understood that they are direct descendants of God, and I really know that, and I've been taught that since birth, then I can't look at my brother and easily pull a trigger on him, because I know if I'm a descendant of God, then you definitely are a descendant of God. So there's no way I can kill one of God's people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And some things I've been doing to try to bring awareness that isn't just something that happened 5,000-6,000 years ago, meaning what happened with Moses and Pharaoh. I've been trying to bring it to present day. And the last couple messages I put on there was about the movie Get Out.
Oh,
It came out
come on, brother.
last year.
Good.
And I took them to the part where it was staged with
Yeah.
this white girl, and she got his confidence when she staged the accident with the deer.
That's right.
And she lullabied him to sleep,
Right.
got him to the house,
Right.
and then the symbolism in the movie is, and it flew
brother.
over most people's head. The dad said, well, how was your ride here? And he said, oh, it was a little rough. We ran over a deer. And he said, no, you did a great thing. He said, it's too many of them anyway.
Ooh, come on now.
He said, it's too many of them anyway. He said, they're taking over.
Wow.
Right? And that flew over most people's head. But the symbolism is when he said it's too many of them anyway.
Wow.
And he was talking about the deer was the symbol of black and Latino boys.
Absolutely.
And men.
Absolutely.
He said, it's too many of them anyway.
Yeah.
He said, they're taking over. So I've been trying to, bring that to people's attention that this is symbolism, but they want us gone.
Well, the reality is the enemy uses his movies to tell us the truth.
Right.
Because he hid the truth so long, and he knows he's going to be judged because when Jesus comes, well, he is here now, and he starts to tell the truth, the enemy has to bear witness to the truth himself. And in the movie Get Out, he does bear witness because the reality is Pharaoh has let the children of Israel go, but we haven't let Pharaoh go. That man tired of dealing with us. You hear him complain they're marching because they're tired of giving us welfare. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, say farewell to welfare because it's a crutch to us. We don't believe in crutches. I'm a man. I should be able to develop and do things on my own. But see, through Get Out, we're so dependent on our former slave masters that we can't do nothing for ourselves. And they're sick of supplying our needs themselves. There's more than enough money for us to build our resources. We can have anything that we want. But we're continue to hold on to their world, even though there's every decade, no jobs, shooting and killing one another, poor education, lack of money. These are the same things Martin Luther King Jr. marched on, the same things Marcus Garvey back in the day during the Great Depression. Before that, he pushed. We're still doing the same thing as our forefathers did, pushing and fighting and trying to get freedom, justice, and equality from a people who by nature will never give you freedom, justice, and equality. Will never happen until we come together and do it ourselves. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, our unity is more powerful than a nuclear bomb. Imagine us being united. And I think I see you sparking it in the darkness, brother, by you going out in the community in York. You're sparking unity. I saw your mayor was there. I saw some Caucasian people was there. I saw black people, Latino people. I said, wow, this is something good. Our people who really see that there's a problem are coming out or showing forth their faith and belief in God and trying to be an agent of change. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Right. So so we know the unity, is the key. We know that. Has Minister Farrakhan given any other immediate solutions to
good
what
question.
Can we do like right now?
Yes, sir.
We're still getting shot by the police.
Absolutely. And
what's the solution to this stuff?
He told us it's going to get worse. So I hate to hear that, but he told us the truth, that we are going to continuously be harassed like that until we do which is in the scripture. And that's time for us to separate and go do for ourselves. But one immediate solution that the minister talked about, I think is important that we establish in York, is since 10-10-15, the nation has been very active in conflict resolution. So we've been creating and establishing conflict resolution centers throughout all of the inner cities. So what that is it's a house funded by different organizations and different people all come together.
So when you have gangs that have beef, instead of them acting out the beef, they come to that conflict resolution center and they talk to men and they resolve their conflict, just like the minister got the Bloods and the Crips to do. So we have these houses, and how it started is we have brothers from Chicago and other areas who are going around to the inner city barbershops throughout the different cities. They did it in Philadelphia, they did it in New York, they did it in Chicago, they did it in Detroit, and they're going to the barbershops. You know, that's where the black men are, at the barbershops. So we're going there and we're having talks about and raising healthy conflict and talking about our issues throughout all these different cities, just to open up awareness amongst our people about what we need to do to stay together. And we've been finding it's been working. In Philadelphia, there had hundreds of men that came out just to listen to that. And it wasn't a Nation of Islam thing. It's all of us coming together because we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and we want to change, you know? And those things with these conflict resolution centers are effective. They're happening in Atlanta. They have been so successful. Now the mosques and the believers in Atlanta now are serving food every Saturday to our people for free. It's establishing food pantries. It's establishing trainings for adults how to handle conflict, because our children don't know how to handle conflict. They just want to put their hands up and they want to rumble and can't fight.
Right.
They can't fight.
What do you think about LeBron James opening the school? What would the minister have to say about that?
Brother, that is a beautiful thing, because education, proper education, is necessary to cultivate our people. And obviously, you can go look at the history, but public education has failed us. It has failed us anytime you have a drop